Welcome to this episode of Something Simple and Light with Tolu Alao. On this episode, we're going to dive into manufacturing excellence, what it means in the context of the Nigerian FMCG space. Manufacturing excellence is beyond an aspiration, it's beyond some lofty concept, framework, story that we tell ourselves. It is very, very important and critical for survival. Without manufacturing excellence, it's difficult to remain competitive in the Nigerian market, considering some of the challenges we've mentioned before around infrastructure, regulation, quality and all of that. With manufacturing excellence, we're able to ensure that things within our control, right, as an organization, we maximize them and minimize any form of, waste, risk, anything that can, reduce our bottom line, right? So let's get into the pillars or the elements that make up manufacturing excellence. There's one critical KPI or one critical item that shows how efficient or inefficient a manufacturing process is, right? And that item or that KPI or that metric is called OEE. OEE stands for overall equipment effectiveness. And I'm going to spend some time, dissecting this KPI, right? OEE is made up of three components known as availability, performance, and quality. And this effectively represents the elements that makes up the core of manufacturing, right? The production elements, the engineering elements, if you may, and the quality elements. These three elements come together, collaborate to produce products that are good, meet certain standards at the lowest cost possible, right? So let's break down the components of OEE: availability, performance, and quality. First of all is availability. Availability speaks to engineering, and this speaks to the equipment used in production, used in manufacturing, are they available for use whenever I want to use them? Do we have a good maintenance plan, preferably preventive maintenance, where we're able to take care of these assets so that they are able to perform optimally whenever we want them. So imagine it as I have an equipment that I'm taking care of properly such that whenever I need that equipment, the equipment delivers, no stories, right? So you don't want a situation where the equipment is unpredictable, it breaks down, at the oddest time possible when there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of demand. Just imagine that you've been waiting for a particular demand, you've been waiting for customers to come, and customers are now here, right? And the equipment refuses to work, right? Because you've neglected it, you've not been taking care of it. So primarily, this is a KPI that you use for the engineering team to ensure that all equipment are maintained properly, they are taken care of. Even when there's a breakdown, you quickly resolve those issues because, if that does not work as planned, then my products cannot be competitive. I cannot produce products when they are needed. When I eventually produce them, I don't have customers because I've lost that sale, right? So that's availability. We want to shy away from unplanned breakdown, from breakdown that happens and catches us unawares, right? So with availability, we target the, ensuring that we avoid unplanned breakdown. All right, let's move to the next part of OEE, which is performance. Performance speaks to the operations team, the production team, the team that, uses that equipment. And the question here is that, are we using the equipment in such a manner that reflects the intentions of the manufacturer of that equipment? Speaking around speed, right? Speed loss. So if the equipment is designed to run at a certain speed, our operations guys, our operators, our production team members, are we running this at the desired speed, right? If an equipment is supposed to produce 100 bottles per minute, am I, for whatever reason, running it at less than design speed? Is that equipment performing? Because the equipment might be available, it's running, but it's not running optimally. That's performance, right? It's not performing as expected, right? And I can still tie this to my engineering team members to say, you know what, do we have all the parts properly maintained in such a way that they can run optimally without causing problems, right? Some of the reasons you might hear from, production teams, from operations teams, is that if you run this equipment at the design speed, right, the equipment starts to vibrate, or the equipment starts to, heat up. So we have to run lower than performance. But that's an issue, because it means that for the same amount of time, I will produce less than desired, right? I will produce less than desired. And that's a cost element that I do not want. Remember again, I said OEE is a manufacturing, KPI. Think about it this way. If I had a higher OEE, right, it means that I will produce more with the same amount of resources that I have, right? So if my availability is good, my performance is good, fantastic, I am good to go. Now, the final part of the OEE discussion here is quality. With quality, we're asking ourselves, does the product conform to the expectation of the end user, or the consumer, of the person who would use this thing? If they were to use this thing, would they say that this is good enough, right? Or would they say this is not good enough? It doesn't matter what the organization thinks quality is. We always look at quality, especially from a manufacturing excellence point of view. We always look at quality from the eye of the customer, from the eye of the person who uses this thing, from the eye of the person paying for this thing. Am I willing to pay for this item in this state, right? Without any form of adjustments, without any form of, repairs or correction? Is this good enough for me? Right? If this is not good enough for me, then I'm not going to pay for it, and it's not, does not meet the quality expectation, right? So with OEE, we're considering three major things. First of all, we said is availability. Is the equipment available when I want it? Then we said performance. Is it running as designed? Right? And the final leg of this is quality. Am I producing items that meet the expectation? Right? That meets my expectation. If it doesn't conform to my expectation, then it's not good enough. All right. So bringing all of this together, when you multiply your availability with your performance and your quality, you get what we call the overall equipment, effectiveness, which is the OEE. And this is such an important part of the conversation when we think about manufacturing excellence. So we want a situation where I have as high as possible OEE. Of course, the highest is 100%, but for whatever reason, maybe 100% is not attainable. But 90% is way better than 60, right? As an example. All right, so that's the part of manufacturing excellence. Another part of the conversation outside of OEE is understanding lean principles, right? And how we can run our processes, our manufacturing process, with as little waste as possible, right? So whether it's waste from the different types of what we call 8 types of waste, right? Overproduction, overprocessing, and all of that, right? Extra movement or excess movement, transportation, the numerous types of waste that can happen in a manufacturing setup. And I think you can listen to, previous episodes. We've talked about some of the types of waste according to Lean, right? These are things that you want to look at and make sure that you eliminate any of these types of waste, right? And all of that. We also have cost reduction strategies, right? Which cost reduction strategies can speak to, reducing the need for excess energy. So energy consumption, ensuring that you're not using energy where you do not have to use energy. right? So cases where you have conveyors running and there's really nothing that is on the conveyor, and the conveyors are just running for running sake because we want to run the conveyors, and then you have other scenarios on water use, minimizing the amount of water that is wasted, right? Because again, for most manufacturers, water is significant. Like, you spend a lot of money treating the water and making it safe for consumption, so you don't want to be wasting that kind of water that you've treated, you've taken care of, you've extracted, and then somebody just opens the tap and the water is just going. It quickly adds up in manufacturing. Before you know it, you've done 100 liters in 1 hour, and then you've done 1,000,000 liters in a month, and we've just wasted a lot of water because we don't have, water saving techniques that we're using, right? And then we have cost reduction initiatives around, the use of packaging materials, right? So am I using more plastics than I need to use? Am I using more cartons than I need to use? Nylons, all of that, because all of this quickly adds up, right? And in manufacturing, FMCG space, depends heavily on a lot of these packaging materials. So you want to be sure that, from a manufacturing excellence standpoint, you're not doing more than you have to do. You're not doing more, you're not doing less. You're doing just enough, right, for the end user. Because the question is the end user willing to pay for all this waste? No. So if you had two businesses where someone has implemented manufacturing excellence strategies to reduce their plastic, water, energy, to have a higher OE, and you have somebody else that none of that KPI is being tracked or measured or monitored, right? Even though they are competing for the same customer and they will probably price their products at the same price, the person that has manufacturing excellence implemented is going to have, way more profits, right? Because he's spending less, right, to run his business. And these are things that are critical when you think about, building a sustainable business and being efficient and good operations managers. All right, this is probably one of, something that I'm so passionate about, manufacturing excellence. And I hope you've been able to pick one or two things from this episode. I keep rooting for you. See you in the next one. All right.